All right, everyone, my name is Jason, and my teammates are Jarrett, Ramon, and Colin, and we're team number 3. In our project, we've titled the Water Irrigation and Crop Selection for South Texas. A little problem description here is that our client has selected 100 acres of land in the middle of his 52,000 acre ranch, and he wants us to take this piece of land, turn it from rangeland into farmland, and then to try to select the best cash crop to grow on this 100 acres, whether that be one certain type of crop or multiple varieties. And then we also have to select the best irrigation method to then use on this piece of land and the crops that we choose to grow. Along with that, we have to determine the source for our irrigation water. We've been given a couple of options. We can either use a pond, a stock tank that is currently there next to the field. We can either drill a well and use that water from the well for our irrigation, or we can use both. And we also have to determine our source of energy for our irrigation system and everything else required to run the well and everything along with that, because there is no power out there. There's no electricity. It costs a lot of money to get electricity out there and other things. And as you can see on this topographic map that our client gave us, where it's in that red outline is our piece of land that we're going to be working with. Right on the edge is the stock tank that we have to use for irrigation if we choose to use. So we actually, 3 of us on the team, were lucky enough to get to go and visit the ranch over the break. We got to travel 6 hours down there from College Station, Texas, down some bumpy roads, get to go see Mr. Rainey. He was very hospitable to us, treated us very well. But we got to go out there and take a tour of the ranch, look around, see all of their different operations they do out there, see the piece of land that we'll be using for our project, get to see the tank and ask any questions we wanted to ask. And he was very helpful to us and answered all our questions to the best of his ability and gave us what we needed to know. So an important part of this project, a key factor, is the climate of the area. It's extremely hot and windy. It's South Texas. It's always going to be hot down there. The wind's always blowing. An average high temperature for the year is around 100 degrees, although in the summer, most of the days it's actually above 100 degrees. And an average low for the year is around 43 degrees Fahrenheit. However, they get usually 1 to 2 freezes a year, sometimes none, sometimes more than that. And they get a very limited amount of rainfall. An average yearly rainfall can be anywhere from 15 to 20 inches. That can fluctuate and change. So as you can see on this graph, it shows the temperatures throughout the year and the amount of rainfall. And you can tell that most of the amount of rainfall comes in the spring and in the fall for the year. And you can also it shows the temperatures, in the summer, it's up there at 100. But this is important stuff because it's going to really affect what we choose to grow. Because all our rain that we're going to get naturally without irrigating is going to come during the springtime or the fall. It's going to be a key thing in what crop we decide to grow. Due to the growing season, it's going to need to be shorter. It's going to have to fit in with this because with the irrigation that we get, it's not going to be a lot. We're going to have to make use of the natural rainfall that we can get also. But there are also times during the year, during hurricane seasons, when they can get more rain down there. In fact, they can get enough to cause flooding, washouts, can do damage. And there's also, times of the year where they can get severe droughts. It can go stretch for months at a time where there just is no rain whatsoever. So that can make it very hard when trying to select what type of crop.
So I'm Jarrett Hayden, and as Jason was just saying, the area down there receives very little rainfall. So part of our solution will have to be figuring out how to supply this area of land with water to irrigate for our crops that we choose. So this is actually a water analysis report of the water table there that we would be accessing through a well. If you notice, the total dissolved salts in this water well is 4,300 parts per million, which is very limiting for farm use. And so one thing that we would have to work with is figuring out how to lower that, which Colin will talk about in a minute. Some of the standards and regulations that we're going to have to work with while we come up with a solution for this problem, are things like, where the ranch is located at. Because we're not inside city limits, there's no city ordinances or city regulations that will affect our work. And the ranch there in Aguilares is well outside the city of Laredo's city limits. In addition, Webb County is not one of the counties listed on the Texas Department of Agriculture website as being regulated herbicide use. There's certain herbicides that are regulated in certain counties in Texas, and Webb County thankfully is not listed in that list of those regulated herbicides. Another thing we'll have to work with the regulations is the diesel generator regulations. As far as the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality is concerned, there's things that we have to work with as far as how much exhaust we're kicking out because we're running the machine so much or so at such a high level for so long. And depending on which horsepower level of generator we choose, that will affect the amount of regulations that we have to abide with. And the last thing is, depending on which solution we come up with, there will be more regulations that follow with that, such as with the cotton crop. If we were to choose cotton, because that ranch is located in zone 2.1, there will be certain ways that we have to destroy that cotton stalk after we harvest because of boll weevil prevention and suppression of the boll weevils and insects like that.
So my name is Ramon Pimentel, and my section of the background was the problem uniqueness. Now, while looking at the problem uniqueness, some of the common issues facing the area is the Tsz-Yi pasture. Now, the Tsz-Yi pasture is very abrasive, and it limits the forage crops and the production of those. Now, there are multiple different methods to deal with them. Some include spray stem method, as well as a leaf spray method that was developed with the help of Texas A&M, actually. Now, moving on to common industry selection, we look at the company MWI, which is based in Kansas. Now, MWI has reservoirs which collect water around their fields and holds it for later parts of the year when it's drier, where it's drier. Now, these reservoirs are connected to the irrigation systems so that this water can be moved and recycled when needed. This technique is especially useful when there's little rain throughout the year or where there's little availability to groundwater. Now, moving on, we see the company Advanced Power Incorporated, which is a company that facilitates an option for companies that have our problem by giving us solar power technology in order to irrigate, such as pumps, such as solar powered water pumps. And now they have their solar powered water pumps ranging between prices of $1,000 to $1,200 for individual pump. And now we have the National Resource Conservation Service, and they estimate that using the solar powered irrigation systems, it's about $1,800 to $2,200 per acre. Moving on to the next slide, we see that area solutions, crops in the area. Solutions that have been used include the use of corn, cotton, and sorghum grain. And here we have all these different values, the yields, the harvested acres, thousands of production and value in Table 1 from the Texas Almanac Crop Productions in 2018.
Howdy, I'm Colin Schmidt, and I had the possible solutions and possible vendors. Coming from the possible solutions on associating with the water, the irrigation system, with the limited amount of rainfall, most likely, depending on how we come across and the yield of our stock tank, most likely we'll have to drill a water well. And with that water well having a ton of dissolved solids inside the water, we will have to install an RO system to filter out the dissolved solids. And to power all the pumps and everything that would be happening, you either use a solar powered, which then we would have to implement battery storage trays to store power overnight if we run the pump at night, or a diesel generator. which everything back in South Texas is powered with diesel. It's an easy commodity to get. Coming from the crop solution, we would have to determine a type of crop rotation just to each season or year to properly rotate to keep the ground on certain nutrition. So either like field cropping, strip cropping, or do like a half and half split on that 100-acre plot. The possible types of crop grown, kind of looking into it, would be cotton, corn, sorghum, mallow, and other vegetables and fruits that could possibly be there. When coming from the vendor perspective, for the well, you'd have to drill about 1,500 feet down, and with drilling that, you put a water pump that's submersible at about 400 to 500 feet, just to pressurize the system to flow it up here. And so some vendors that could be in here would be like Hallmark, Red Lion, FPS pumps, and when installing it, trying to filter out that water, it most likely would be an RO system. You can either go some brands that are off the counter that are commercial and industrial size, such as Colgan Water or Applied Membranes Inc. Our client on the photo, he showed us one of their homemade systems that they did where they had 2 water pumps in there to reduce the pressure at a certain PSI. And you have multiple filtered membranes where you flow water through, because you push too little, you get too much recycled water, but if you push too much, you don't recycle the water to its full ability. Because we only need to get down to about 800 and 900 parts per million to let agriculture sustain, where they filter theirs to about 100 to 110 for bottled water for them to live. And then the generator and solar powered, some of the companies as solar on the 2 would be LG Solar or Sun Power, and then diesel generators would be like Perkins or Kubota. And then in conclusion to the summary, the climate overall is very dry. You got a limited amount of rainfall, which is about 15 to 20 inches a year. Very hot, humid area to 100 degrees, and then come in wintertime where it's 1 to 2 freezes a year. Over the standards and regulations, Webb County has no herbicides currently at its state. The diesel regulations do fall under TCEQ. The uniqueness is just having the weed-set pastures. Possible solutions as of coming towards it would be drilling a water well, figuring out if we're going to work with diesel or solar, installing a reverse osmosis system if we do drill the water well, and then the type of crop rotation of what we would grow.
Now we move on to what's next. What's next is the flow analysis and decision matrix section of the project. The team has already met up and discussed possible inputs as well as possible outputs, as well as possible solutions. And next, we're thinking of meeting up with our faculty advisor, Dr. Kingman, in order to discuss not only this, but the next steps to follow on with the flow analysis and decision matrix. Thank you so much for your attention today. And do we have any questions?
Let's go right to the client. Bill, do you have any questions for the team or comments?
No, it looked like a good start to me. You guys doing a good job so far.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. How about team 4? Why don't you guys come online and do your peer review? A couple of questions, comments, that kind of thing.
I have a comment. It's actually a good one. I like how they use their hands while explaining. Most of them had really good hand gestures while explaining, counting, pointing at the presentation. Even though I'm not there, I could see when they were looking at the presentation just for reference. None of them read too much out of it. And I don't have, for a question, I would say well, maybe more of a consideration, why would y'all think, cause it's really hot down there, in all Texas, but over there it's really arid and really dry. So maybe consider putting, I don't know, some facilities for workers and stuff like that, because it really gets rough out there.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Anything else from Team 4? Any other comments or questions? Let's have one more. One more comment or question.
I would say maybe, I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't a formal presentation, but me personally, I would have dressed up a little bit more.
Okay. All right. That's all right. I told them they didn't have to. Okay. Thank you, Marcel and Team 4. Elena, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, I thought it was very well organized, the distribution of speakers, content and the pace, and you all have good presentation skills, you make eye contact. I don't know how it felt by Zoom, but it was very, very nice. I like the description of the problem. You put that map in there, so I know what you're talking about. I like that you went to the site, so you have firsthand understanding of the problem. So to me, that was excellent to see. I have just one technical question. You don't say anything about the pond. You decided to work with a well, and there's nothing from that pond that you could use for.
So currently the pond is about a 3 acre pond, but there's about an acre of water and it's about a 7-foot threshold throughout. The problem is it's hard to make up how much water is currently in there, and there is an amount of certain solids that are in there that we were going to take the well system possibly, and as we cycle the water and let it flow back in there, because it's every 5 gallons you put in, you only get 1 gallon out. So because of how heavy the solids are, but we were going to use that as storage since it's covered. It has a clay bottom from underneath the soil, so water won't seep through. You can use that as a storage tank or big tanks to store.
Very good. That answers my question. Anyway, overall, very good job.
Yes. Let me make some comments here. 14 minutes, so right in the heart of where we're looking for in terms of timing. Very well distributed among the 4 of you. Jason, I timed you at the longest with 5 minutes, and Jarrett, you were the least with 2 minutes, but I felt like that's not a problem, okay? Because you all covered a significant part of the project. Good job. I felt like your slides, your images were very well put together. There was one slide at the beginning where you had on your ranch visit, you had 3 pictures, and I think that was designed to communicate, see, we went there and we saw some stuff, and this is generally what it looks like. You could have actually, bring that one up. You could have actually had 1 slide per picture so we could see a little bit better. Like, for example, I have a question about this, the bottom picture. It looks like there's grass growing there. What is that grass? Any idea? I mean, you went on a site visit. I hope you did more than just look around.
I don't remember what the client did tell us about. I can't remember.
Okay,
Well, that's the thick,
get up there, Jason.
that's the thick undergrowth that actually shows an area of the ranch that was already currently partially cleared. I mean, the brush down there, you can see in this top left picture, it's a lot thicker than that one over there. But they have multiple bulldozers. They routinely clear certain areas of pasture. So for our farmland, this is something we would have to discuss, is how to clear that land out. Because the land that we're working with currently, parts of it are partially cleared. Some of it still has a full amount of brush on it. We would have to discuss how we want to do that, and then the best ways to try to prepare that land also to put a crop in. Because, turning land from pasture to farmland, it's kind of rough. You're going to have to prepare the soil to make a good seed bed to be able to plant.
But are you curious what's growing there right now? I mean, it looks like it's a pretty good thickness and stand of whatever that is. Was it planted? Is it natural? That might inform what you do in the future. Right? You don't have to answer that right now, but
It's something to think about.
Yeah. Do you have something here, Jarrett?
I believe, if I remember correctly, that's a prairie grass that they plant to help restore vegetation to whenever they clear.
Okay.
Because there's mesquite trees throughout.
All right, thanks. So, yeah,
It's buffalo grass, Buffel, buffel grass.
buffel grass, yeah, that's a pretty common forage out there. So the fact that buffalo grass was chosen and it seems to be thriving, you may want to be informed by that because not that you want to plant more buffalo grass, but if buffalo grass grows in these kind of conditions, what else that's similar to buffalo grass might be a good choice. So everything tells you something. But anyway, those are good pictures. Thanks for doing that. I love the fact that you got some actual people in the picture. I'd like to see more of that, if that's okay.
It's a great time down there.
Yeah, Jason, your presentation style is very, very good. You're very comfortable. Everybody did a great job, by the way. But I like your presence. One thing I really liked is when you were talking about the weather data, you got that slide with the graph. Nice use of figures, by the way. You displayed the weather data. You don't have to put it up there, but you didn't just say, here's the weather data. You put some meaning behind it. The reason this is important is because this is going to drive the crops we grow. We have to select crops that are going to grow within these parameters. Excellent. Okay, that's exactly right.
I noted that too. That was very good. Yes.
That was good. Okay, let me move on to Ramon. Let's see, you had some slides, project uniqueness. I like the way you talk, Ramon, nice and articulate, very, very slow. I mean, not too fast. I would say that you have a problem with your mask keeps moving. So this is a new factor that y'all are going to have to deal with. If you're going to present with a mask, you need to rehearse that so you're not consistently messing with it and your glasses. You even, did your hair. So you're going to see that on your self-critique. So you're going to have to make some adjustments to not distract during your presentation. Okay. Rehearse in front of a mirror. That's always a good thing. Otherwise, that was good. The critique I've got on your slides, your common industry slide. Can you put that up there, Jason, or Ramon, anybody? You had a lot of discussion about these, MRI and other, or MWI. I would say there was so much discussion there. I would have probably gone ahead and had an MWI slide, an advanced power ink slide with some pictures, because you talked about solar power and I'm not sure now which one's which. So I think when you talk so much about one particular bullet, consider giving that bullet its own slide to help us understand it. All right. Your next slide about the crop yield, crops and the yield, it was from the Almanac. My question here is, yes, this is from the Texas Almanac, but and it says area solutions. So are these crops that are well suited to this area, or all of Texas in general? What's your answer to that question?
Well, this chart from this table from the Texas Almanac is pulled from all of Texas, not only the Webb County area, which is what we are specifically working with. So the problem that we have with this table is that we have data in which these three crops are grown in different types of soils with different types of conditions all throughout Texas. So even though it does have some information, it might not be specific to what we need in Webb County.
Okay, so this is a good start. Let me ask you, what do you think? And this one big critique I have here is I see some data, a lot of data. Don't see a literature review. I don't see that you've presented any articles about the challenges with growing crops in arid areas with high salinity in the water. Aguilares is not the only place in the world that has that challenge. There are other places in the United States, the Coachella Valley in Southern California, other places worldwide, Israel, where they've had to deal with similar sort of things. So look beyond just what's close at hand and see some of those solutions when you're looking at similar solutions may inform what you do here.
Okay.
But anyway, a local asset might be the local county agent. I mean, he's going to tell you, several years ago they tried to grow upland cotton here, but it just didn't work and blah, blah, blah. So don't worry, don't overlook those.
Like an agri-life extension agent?
Exactly. I tell you, as students, graduates of Texas A&M, those guys are in your hip pocket, okay?
I know.
And they're great assets, they're very overlooked, so are great resources, I mean, so don't overlook those guys.
If I may, I have a question on this table, the units, 000.
Oh, yeah, in thousands, so like,
Oh,
it's,
okay. Thousands.
750,000.
Thank you.
That's good, but you see how
Yeah.
it was improperly displayed, so it was confusing. So what you do there
Confusing, yeah.
is you should put the 1,000, 1,000, not just 000, or
Yes.
thousands, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, that's enough for you, Ramon. Let me get Jared up there. Jared, your well test, go ahead and step up in the hot seat there. What's the date of that? I mean, that's great information. Where'd that come from?
That was 2018, I believe,
Okay.
or 17.
So you talked about the total dissolved salts in a high parts per million, 4,300 parts per million. But you didn't put that in context. What's a good number? What's a desirable level? If that's high, what is normal? 1,000, 200? What?
For farming practices, it would be 800 or 900.
800 or 900. Now, Colin, you did say that, but
Yeah.
Jared, I was expecting you to say that. In other words, why is this number so large? Okay, and why is that bad? Standards and regulations. You talked about the air emissions from diesel engines. Good, that's good. Talk to me later about that. Your solution may involve a diesel generator. I can point you in the right direction to see if you're going to need a special permit or if it's covered by a standard permit. Okay. And then we got Colin. You had a slide called possible solutions, and I didn't like that slide.
Just the title of it?
Just the title. Let me tell you why. Now, I understand why you had it on there. What you're saying is you're leading up to your next part, which is vendors of potential solutions, that kind of thing. And that was good. But I would say be careful about, at this stage of the project, beginning to hone in on our potential solutions. That's next. That comes after flow analysis and figuring out how much water you have available. And that water is going to drive the crop selection and how much water it needs. And you're going to take that delta in the water requirement, for example, this is just one part of your flow analysis. And that's going to determine not only what crop you have, but how much more water do we need to come up with. That information is going to drive how you're going to irrigate. Maybe you're going to drill a well. Maybe there's enough in that pond. You just don't know. My point is you don't know. And you have a way, I think probably in Dr. Keenan's class, you have a way to calculate the volume of a pond.
Or next week.
Or at least estimate. You don't know how deep it is, but you can figure out how big around it is. We have aerial maps and things like that. You can estimate the depth, do some high-speed math, and calculate the volume of that thing.
We've talked about it kind of, and if we can get with Mr. Rainey again, on possibly going down there again with our land surveying equipment, just to actually see, surveying some of the land and getting a benchmark and kind of drawing the elevation slope kind of way the water lines would lay out if we type of irrigation we would do. We would just have to get with him again. We'd all go as a group and work together to figure that out. If we can check out field surveying equipment from the department.
Well, our faculty advisor also is Dr. Kingman, and so we were actually hoping when we met with him to discuss, since he knows he teaches that, he knows all about it. We were hoping to actually discuss him helping us make sure we calculate the volume of that tank correctly. It can get tricky a little bit, so we want to make sure we do that correct, and hopefully he'll give us any advice or help with that we need to figure that out.
Okay. Y'all did a good job. We need to get into transition, but Jan, do you have any comments or questions?
I actually have one comment or suggestions. It's about your, I noticed some of you touch your mask a lot, and if this mask is causing you problem, maybe you should invest in a different style of mask. So for example, the standard one has a little piece of metal here. It will fix it right here, even though I have a lot of movement on my lower face. So maybe they'll help you and get less distraction from your audience, because I seen you adjust your mask pretty much in 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's my only suggestion. Otherwise, it's very good quality, good picture, good tables. I really enjoy it.
I can tell you, if you've got a fresh shave, that helps. If you've got some razor stubble you haven't shaved in a few days, or you have facial hair, that makes your mask work down. Okay, so We're learning all about this, okay?
I have a question. I believe there is an engineering team working on the same problem. Have you contacted them?
I don't know anyone in Bain or if.
I believe there is one.
We thought there might be, but we don't know for sure. So,
Okay, let me find out. I'm not,
They did a wind, I know when we came to the property, when we came from the entrance off the Jimmy's Road, they did have the wind tunnel that they designed and all some of that
Okay.
stuff. But our project was way back there, so we didn't see the wind tunnel besides just coming into it, but, we didn't really.
I will ask Professor Stark. I think there is a engineering team, but maybe not. But I
He's in
believe-
charge of the Bain program on their capstone, I
Yes,
recall.
yes.
So I can maybe speak with him or email him
Sure,
and
just
see.
asking if there is a team. It will be interesting to see what they are doing. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, and
With the-
your
with the-
client may want you to work with that team, or he may prefer you stay
Sure.
independent and have two different ideas, and that's fine too. So
Sure.
make sure your client has a say in that. Okay, let's swap over.